The moment you stop explaining yourself is the moment people begin to respect you. Most people never realize this. They believe that respect comes from being understood, from proving their intentions, from making sure everyone sees their good heart. So they talk. They justify their decisions. They explain their choices. They defend their actions. But the more they explain, the more they slowly lose something invisible, yet powerful. They lose authority. They lose presence. They lose the quiet strength that commands respect without ever asking for it. In a world that constantly pushes people to express everything, the ability to remain composed and silent becomes rare, and rare things carry value. Stoic philosophers understood this long before modern psychology began to study it. They believed that a person who controls their reactions controls their life. Not every accusation deserves a defense. Not every misunderstanding needs correction. Sometimes the strongest response is calm silence. Think about how people behave when they feel insecure. They rush to clarify themselves. They explain their motives again and again. They try to convince others that they are right, that they meant well, that they deserve approval. But in doing so, they unknowingly hand their power to the very people they are trying to impress. Because the moment you start begging to be understood, you position yourself below the judgment of others. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the best revenge is not to become like your enemy. What he meant was simple. You do not have to fight every battle that appears in front of you. You do not have to respond to every criticism. A person who is deeply grounded in their values does not depend on constant validation from the outside world. They know who they are. And because they know who they are, they feel no need to constantly explain themselves. Many people believe silence makes them look weak. They fear that if they do not defend themselves immediately, others will assume guilt or incompetence. But in reality, the opposite often happens. When someone remains calm and composed under pressure, people begin to wonder what gives them that confidence. Silence creates gravity. It creates the impression of inner certainty. And certainty is one of the most powerful signals of strength. Psychology confirms this again and again. The more someone talks to justify themselves, the more people subconsciously sense insecurity. But when someone speaks less and chooses their words carefully, others begin to listen more closely. Every sentence carries more weight. Every reaction appears deliberate instead of emotional. The Stoic mindset is built on this exact principle. Speak only when necessary, and when you speak, speak with intention. Imagine two people facing criticism. The first person immediately begins defending themselves. They explain every detail. They try to convince everyone that they are right. Their voice becomes slightly faster. Their tone becomes slightly defensive. They want resolution. They want approval. Now imagine the second person. They listen quietly. They acknowledge the situation calmly. They respond briefly, if at all. Their posture remains relaxed. Their tone remains steady. They do not appear desperate to change anyone's opinion. And because of that, they often gain more respect. This is because human beings instinctively measure confidence by behavior, not by words. Anyone can claim to be confident, but very few people can remain calm when misunderstood. Very few people can tolerate silence without feeling the urge to fill it with explanations. The Stoics practiced this discipline deliberately. They trained themselves to pause before reacting. They trained themselves to observe their emotions instead of immediately obeying them. Seneca once wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Much of our urge to explain ourselves comes from imagined consequences. We imagine that others will judge us harshly. We imagine that our reputation will collapse if we do not defend every accusation. But most of the time, the world moves on quickly. People forget arguments faster than we expect. The energy we waste on defending ourselves rarely changes anyone's mind. There is another reason silence commands respect. It forces others to reveal themselves. When you refuse to engage in endless explanations, people eventually show their true intentions. Some will respect your composure, others will become frustrated because they cannot control the narrative. But either way, their reaction tells you something valuable. It tells you who deserves your attention and who does not. Stoicism teaches that you cannot control what others think about you. You can only control your actions and your character. This realization is incredibly freeing. Once you accept that not everyone will understand you, the pressure to constantly justify yourself begins to fade. You start making decisions based on your principles rather than the approval of others. Many of the most respected individuals throughout history shared this quiet quality. They did not waste their energy arguing with every critic. They focused on their work, their discipline, and their values. Their actions spoke for them. Over time, people learn to trust actions far more than explanations. Another important lesson from Stoic philosophy is emotional discipline. When someone criticizes you unfairly, the immediate impulse is to react. You feel the urge to correct them, to defend your reputation, to make sure everyone knows the truth. But reacting emotionally often amplifies the situation. It gives the conflict more attention and more energy. A Stoic approach looks different. Instead of reacting instantly, you pause. You observe the emotion rising inside you, but you do not allow it to control your behavior. You ask yourself a simple question: is responding necessary? Will explaining myself actually improve this situation? Or will it simply drain my energy while achieving nothing meaningful? Very often, the answer becomes clear. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It allows you to conserve your mental energy for things that truly matter. It protects your peace of mind from unnecessary conflict. And it communicates a powerful message to others. You are not easily shaken. You are not desperate for approval. This does not mean that you should never speak or never clarify misunderstandings. Wisdom lies in knowing when explanation is useful and when it is pointless. If a situation genuinely requires communication, then speak calmly and directly, but avoid the trap of endless justification. Say what needs to be said and then move forward. The Stoic mindset encourages simplicity in speech. The more clearly you understand your values, the fewer words you need to defend them. When your actions consistently reflect your character, explanations become unnecessary. People observe your behavior over time and draw their own conclusions. There is also a deeper form of freedom hidden in this philosophy. When you stop explaining yourself to everyone, you stop living for everyone. You begin living according to your own principles. Your decisions become clearer, your boundaries become stronger, and your presence becomes calmer. Some people may misunderstand this transformation. They may accuse you of being distant or arrogant, but in reality, you are simply refusing to participate in unnecessary drama. You are choosing clarity over noise, and over time, the people who truly matter will recognize the difference. Respect rarely comes from trying to convince others of your worth. Respect grows naturally when your behavior reflects quiet confidence. When you stop chasing validation, people begin to notice your independence. When you stop explaining every decision, your choices appear more deliberate. When you stop reacting emotionally, your composure becomes visible. The Stoics believed that the strongest individuals are those who master themselves, not those who dominate others, but those who control their own impulses. Silence, when used wisely, is a form of that mastery. It shows that you are comfortable with yourself. It shows that you do not depend on constant external approval. In the end, the goal is not to appear mysterious or intimidating. The goal is simply to live with clarity and discipline. Speak when your words add value. Remain silent when they do not. Let your actions carry the weight of your character, because the truth is simple. The more you try to convince people of your worth, the more they question it. But the moment you stop chasing their approval, something shifts. Your presence becomes steadier. Your words become stronger, and your silence begins to speak louder than any explanation ever could.